Hello, I'm Nimix. In the past, any TAS documentaries I've made have been solely a review on my interest that I wish to deliver. Well, this particular one, I've reached out to a few gamers and asked that they send me questions on what they would like to have answered. In addition, I've ejected a few of my own, but it will be mostly a response to a private audience that I've been in communication with. Recently, I've decided to get more involved with the making of these types of videos because I need more experience with this new software that I'm using called VSDC. My end goal is to build up enough skill so that my most valuable work done on the original F-Zero can be published with a greater presentation. When I'm finally done with this current retask, my intentions will be to lay out all the details on mechanics and how I approach the making of it. So for now, let's get started on this very unique sequel done on the Japanese version from Satellaview called BS F-Zero Grand Prix 2. Unless specifically stated, all these questions are mostly sent in from Wurzel. Aside from him, the following people also asked questions for answering. They are MKDS Master, Z-Wing, and Aaron Yeager. First question. Why not hit all the accelerators? Does it matter, or will it slow you down by hitting a max limit and having to go faster? This is a very good question. I had to think about this, and I finally realized that what you're curious about is my decision on not aiming straight down the center of the arrows. Well, one point that I was aiming for was to get my speed up as quickly as possible. At first, I was trying to hit the very tip all the way to the right, but due to a massive reduction in control, it made it harder to get to the other spots I wanted. So I tried to balance and eventually settled on what you're seeing here, which is about halfway from the middle to the side of the track. The mix of hitting some strips got me to my goal of a tight turn on the right side of the track, where I'm still getting my boost as early as possible on the last part. One point about boosting my speed early is that I will have leftover speed for the next strip across the upcoming jump. If I had returned to normal speed before the next set of strips, then going down the center would have been my alternate choice, as it wouldn't have wasted any opportunity to max out my speed. During my time on the first set of strips, the only reasonable control I have is using the L or R buttons, which will still not be fast enough to hit every spot that would be desirable. However, using this type of maneuver can help to keep you on the strips longer and holding that top speed for a frame or two longer. Next question. What technique are you using for boosting? What Wurzel is getting at is the fact that we take advantage of a braking technique to make use of the higher speeds of the S-jet cycle. While under this influence, you cycle roughly from 562 down to 478 kilometers per hour, only to start that cycle over again. If you brake during the lower part of this cycle, you will actually gain more ground because you are remaining on the higher speeds longer. I have found that the best speed to start this at is 529. With TASing, I'm not always able to get that, so the next best speed would be 530. In either case, the optimal braking is 11 frames. Question. It looks like you just caught the corner for this jump pad. How much error room is there pixel-wise, as it looked like you were going to go straight into the lane bumpers? Because each turn is botted, I'm not usually aware of how close it does make it. When setting up for a botted run, I can tell you that I will adjust my turn until I'm no longer able to get a ramp boost. I'm going to bring up a point here at the beginning of this track. Unlike F-Zero, where the Stingray makes a double speed bump, mostly against the Blue Falcon, here the Lunar Bomber does the same thing against the Blue Thunder, only once. Some of you may be wondering, why not try with the Green Amazon? Well, I'll go ahead and share some rare information here. It is possible to get a Golden Fox speed bump during a league race of the original F-Zero, but the Stingray's direction is so off course that it doesn't work well for gaining any ground. I've not tried it with this game, but I can imagine the same problem exists here. Only I don't think it's possible, since my observations show that the Green Amazon gets up even more quicker by relation. Getting to the point of only one speed bump, the Lunar Bomber also seems to gain speed relationally faster in the same fashion. If you look at the current world record run and single track IGT runs, you'll see support for my decision to keep to a single bump, in some cases a double bump. A last point that I'd like to call your attention to is the dropout of the acceleration sounds during the start of this race. I was slightly surprised at this, but I can certainly understand why my bot decided to drop out some of these B inputs to get an optimal slam from the Blue Thunder. Question: why didn't you take the jump pad to the left, or does staying on the track net you faster speeds? Take note that the Green Amazon boost performed shortly before the ramp has increased my speed enough that I'm quickly up to my top speed before the need of using this. In human efforts, runners veer left to take advantage of it, since it does help to get your speed up quicker. Another thing to consider is the fact that when you are in air, you can gain up to 478 kilometers an hour, which is not possible during non-boosting conditions. This Lunar Bomber constantly alternates between 476 and 477, so it is to your advantage to jump up as high as possible to get ahead. My experiments show that an optimal jump can get you ahead by 2 pixels over not using the ramp. Performing this over 5 laps can get you an extra frame. Now, as you see, I pass on this opportunity for another reason. My approach angle actually loses more than 2 pixels, so it's certainly not worth using this ramp, especially since I'm already ahead. Question: not a TAS question, but why does ice make you slide when you're literally a hover car and not technically touching the surface of the track? Wursel, I have a question for you. How many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Roll Tootsie Pop? I think in both cases here, the world may never know. I'm going to take this time to inject a question asked by MKDS Master. This question is a general one and not pertaining to any specific spot in the TAS. The question was, what is the difference between the Fire Stingray and the Lunar Bomber? After having tasked F-Zero for a number of years, the Fire Stingray became very common, so its mechanics have become very natural for me to exploit. The Lunar Bomber eventually became common, but only after getting acquainted with some extreme differences. One of those differences is the grip on the track. If you were to hold the accelerator through a tight curve, the Lunar Bomber will lose traction much quicker over the Stingray, as you can imagine. So you could say that this vehicle is very slippery and extremely touchy with the controls. Another point is, after you get past the steep curve of acceleration on both cars, there is a dramatic difference on peaking out at max speed. The Stingray is extremely slow at getting to that max speed, roughly 13 frames per kilometer, as opposed to 6 frames for the Lunar Bomber. On the side of tassing, there are specific inputs that I use to accomplish goals that a human cannot achieve. One of them is how I use the L and R buttons to slide. If you recall, I published a short demonstration to the community on avoiding the use of this technique, if you want to keep from losing time. Well, there is a big difference in the misuse of sliding where the Stingray's drag is significantly less than that of the Lunar Bomber. When I do exploit each car's ability in regards to avoiding this drag, I have a specific set of inputs that I apply to cut time. With the Stingray, I can tap the L or R buttons every other frame. Performing this strategy on the Lunabomber would certainly cause drag as it requires more inactive pressing. For example, the Stingray can be tapped on frames 1, 3, 5, and 7, and no forward progress will be lost. On the other hand, the Lunabomber would have to be tapped on frames 1, 4, 7, and 11 to keep from falling behind. Notice the frame spacing of 3 plus 3 plus 4, which is totally different on its pattern. So this version of the game, I tend not to perform sliding as much. However, if you analyze the inputs of this game, the bot certainly puts them in there for reasons that position the car for clipping that can occur in tight turns or traversing over bumpers and maybe the heat obstacles. In any manual effort, this would be a massive headache and probably a reason to walk away from TAS in this game. Question. I know you're inputting a bunch of buttons that are not obvious, but how did you make it through these turns without losing much speed? This is where botting shows that my theory for faster times can be made over the manual preferred method of watching RAM addresses for momentum and speed. Originally, when I tried to beat Miki Higashi's times, I thought it was going to be impossible. After I found that my bot was able to improve on his, I realized that my thoughts about changing inputs in the latter part of a turn could open up opportunities for improvements in the beginning parts. So what this ends up being was a trimming effect from my bot, which can show insignificant improvements, but would add up over multiple optimization discoveries. Instructing my bot to completely start over on each fine, it would continue until all small changes no longer occur. Question. Why get second place? Second place reduces the celebration time. This will vary from track to track and how far the second place car is behind you. There are two tracks that I come in first place. The last track, which doesn't matter since we're finishing the game, and the fourth track, which the second place car was so far behind that I couldn't manipulate the game to bring the green Amazon closer. On the tracks that I do come in second, you'll notice some techniques that I perform to make this happen. Sometimes you'll see the Lunabomber bounce on a wall, while others I'll scrape the edge of a turn. It's during these times that I discovered RNG can be changed and pull the second car back closer to me. There is a trick, however, to this. I discovered during my botting of the original F-Zero that I could change the focus of my improvements onto the second place car by swapping out addresses I monitor. During that botting process, my inputs would cause the car to alter its position in accordance to RNG. Question. How possible is it for a human to make this turn and land that jump? Actually, MKDS Master does this in his world record run, as well as Edward 40 and his single track IGT times. The only difference between them and a TAS is that I'm able to squeeze the turn out to a very small subpixel displacement before I crash out. This is actually the first track where I'm able to beat out runners' first lap times, where they use the green Amazon for a speed bump. As you have already observed, I'm unable to do so in this league race due to the distance I would have to cross over where the green Amazon starts, except for Sandstorm 2, where there's a crosswind that exists to help blow me over to the right side very quickly. Getting back to this track though, I believe it's because of its jump ramps and how tightly I maneuver them are the reasons I'm able to get those better times. Additionally, this is also where the bot showed me something I didn't expect: actual changes in midair. Just note that while in air, the car has the same problems as on the ground. So don't be misled as to thinking that optimization can't be done while flying. Before moving on, this brings up an important question asked by Z-Wing. Sometime in November 2022, the question was put to me, does the L or R buttons affect the forward progress while in air? My answer is the same as with the studies I've done on the Fire Stingray. Whether you are in air or not, they do prevent you from moving forward as opposed to not using them. In fact, the Luna Bomber is actually more touchy and will drag you back further than the Fire Stingray. So, in this version of the game, do not use them at all cost. Question: how many crazy inputs did it take to shimmy in a straight line against that magnetic bar and avoid the rough patches? This was actually the most craziest situation of them all. In fact, if it hadn't have been for me creating a multi-instance bot, I would not have attempted anything here, as it would have taken multiple days to complete this operation. I did some benchmarking on my old method and confirmed that the new process is running about 10.2 times faster using 16 instances. I was hoping that it would have been 16 times faster, but I attribute some of the delay to overhead in processing the transfer of information from one bot to another and noticing that each instance added slowed it down a bit. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. Yes, I did apply affinity, but that helped to recover a small amount of loss, maybe around 5 to 10%. Anyway, this new bot made a good showing and actually was responsible for cutting another frame over the previously used method. As we are closing this out, I'm thinking now on Aaron Yeager's request to talk about some of the common things that we all see on a normal basis. This last track has a discussion point that I think will close this documentary out nicely. During the retasking of Deathwind 1, I had a discussion with E-Dragon, where we talked about the discovery my bot made when traversing over the speed strips. We were both confused as to why the bot found an additional frame of maxed out speed until he realized that it was actually finding a way to stay on the strip one frame longer. Well, of course, this was a very key improvement for seeing those 2010 laps that I got. On this track, I took advantage of that technique as well, plus an additional trick that helped me to end the task timing of this run earlier than expected. As we approached the end of this run, I positioned my vehicle in a way so that it veered off to the left. This occurred because I removed the inputs, since being under the speed strip influence doesn't require the pressing of the B button to maintain. This was a nice way to end the task, as it cut around 40 frames of continued acceleration. There is a recent event that I need to inform everyone on. A conversation I had with Dr. D2K9 brought up the attribute for a lowercase letter of H in a ROM file name that we were discussing. I quickly was alerted and inquired about the same attribute in my ROM used for this task with Casual Pokeplayer. Well, it turns out that there may be a submission problem. No matter the issue, I do plan on finding a way to get it published, but it will be an unofficial release for the moment to the F-Zero community. I'm hopeful that any changes with BizHawk will allow my inputs to fully sync on a non-hacked version. Thank you all for watching. Be on the lookout in the future for a revised version of F-Zero, which is coming along nicely. At this point, I'll pique your interest by telling you that I'm making significant cuts beyond my expectations. Have a good one, everybody. God bless.